Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome, everyone, to Aggressive Negotiations, coming to you live, or somewhat live, recorded from The Wheel.
Ooh, The Wheel. Oh,
Yeah,
that is
that's
a great
right.
reference. Nice.
I know. Well, thank you. I've been watching a lot of the Freemaker Adventures, and that's where they're housed, is on The Wheel. And so
I will be based on your recommendations, be watching the Freemaker Adventures soon. And The Wheel is such a deep reference that impresses me, because The Wheel was first introduced back in the Marvel Comics run back in the Carmine Infantino days. My goodness.
It's absolutely fabulous what they pull in this show. I think you're going to love it. But hey, we haven't even introduced ourselves.
Yeah, no, sorry about that. I heard The Wheel
totally
and I was like,
got going.
wait, what? That's from my
The
childhood.
Wheel. No, I am host and Jedi Master Matthew Rushing, and with me, as he is always, you've already heard his wonderful dulcet tones, John Mills.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. No, I like I said, I hear something from the old Marvel Comics days and I get excited because it seems to validate a piece of my childhood, which is always nice. It's always always a plus.
What's fun is the way in which all of all the Disney work that they're doing in canon these days, they're just kind of like pulling things, and it's what these random little tidbits that they pull back into canon, I think is always a lot of fun, or just pull back into their shows. Freemakers kind of sits in this like canon adjacent place, and we'll talk about that sometime. But anyway, John, I wanted to the beginning of this show is just all over the place. But I was really excited, and I was flummoxed and just floored that we had a couple of new reviews that we hadn't talked about yet.
Yeah, and they're pretty fantastic reviews. They're very wonderful reviews. We got two new reviews that we haven't had a chance to mention. One of them is from PodJunkie222, and the title of it is "Fun, Smart, Fast-Paced," which I think, given the rate at which we're moving with the opening of this show, we're proving that we are fast-paced.
I can feel Lucas behind me just telling me faster, more intense.
That's right. Listening to Matt and John go back and forth on Star Wars is like hanging with two friends who are so into a topic you just cradle your coffee and sit back and soak in the glory of their obsession. That's a good word for it. Do I always agree with their takes? Nope. Do I always get miles out of their deep dive into the grit and grind of the Skywalker galaxy? Absolutely. They know the franchise, all of it, from books to movies to toys to music to graphic art. And their passion is infectious and informative, and you can trust their insights and recommendations to be candid and smart. Aggressive Negotiations is tops on my Tuesday podcast download. It's a great way to get your Star Wars fix. That is one heck of a review, and highly, highly appreciated, and actually really flattering. So thank you so much.
All I can say is, Carabast, that's awesome.
Carabast. Yeah.
So good. Well, John, I don't know if the next review tops that one, but I've got to say the title is the best one yet.
Yeah.
And it says, "I only know one truth. This is an awesome podcast."
Nice.
/ Luke Skywalker, The Last Jedi teaser. I thought that I heard that the first time I saw the trailer.
Yeah,
that's
what it sounded like to me.
Yeah,
that's definitely what it sounded like to me.
The reviewer goes on to say, half the time I feel like hosts Matt Rushing and John Mills are reading my mind. The other half I want to shout, no, you've got it all wrong. And yet there's no denying that this is one of the best Star Wars podcasts out there. A great extension of the more traditional Star Wars reviews the hosts cover on Trek FM's The 602 Club. Aggressive Negotiations grab bag style of topics always keeps me excited to see what they'll be discussing next. Great for both hardcore and casual fans alike. Keep up the hard work. Man, with reviews like this, John, I want to retire and just do this show.
So do I. And actually, another lovely tidbit is we actually got feedback from our Rogue One extras show a couple episodes ago.
We did, absolutely.
Somebody actually reached out to us, a listener. So thank you for that. You can always reach out to the show at thenerdparty.com/contact and drop a line to us. Just look up, Aggressive Negotiations. But the comment was a quick insight on longer behind the scenes. My team at, and I'm not going to name the company, but my team at made behind the scenes for original series. None of it could be longer than 5 minutes due to guild rules. Anything longer than 5 minutes was considered programming and not promotional and triggered payment options and on and on and on. One way around that, finish a piece and fade the next one up, then string them together. We did make longer pieces, scripted content, and so on, and always worked out those behind-the-scenes details with the myriad of players, from internal development execs to talent reps to our guild experts. The easy default was to make the 5 minutes and, if needed, put them back to back with clear fade down and up from black. No clue if that's the case with Rogue One extras, but been there before. So that is actually a really interesting insight. I'm sure that it's a little bit different with a straight Blu-ray sort of thing, but that does answer the insight, because that was, I think, one of the things that I know that I was harping on was, why not just make the big long documentary instead of having these chopped up things? And this is a pretty clear answer, because this way they can you can hit a play all, and it should play like that, but they get around certain rules having to do with content by chopping it up. So thank you for that insight.
Yeah, that was fantastic, and we really appreciate that. The only thing I'm wondering on that is that something that gets kind of worked into all the contracts when you're making a film specifically? The way that music rights get worked into the contracts for DVD release and whatnot, so they can do that nowadays. That's what kept so many great shows like The Wonder Years from coming to DVD so long, were music rights issues, because they hadn't, gotten that request for... Yeah. All that stuff that goes in. So, that's totally fascinating, though. And I really appreciate that kind of feedback, because, the industry insiders, we're on the outside of that for sure. And so getting that, behind-the-scenes look at making behind the scenes was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, and actually, just as an example of how much we appreciate it, if you're new to the show, we do have an interview with Nick Anastasio about the behind-the-scenes process, to give us some insight into some of the things that we have read and talked about, having to do with questions we have about process for Rogue One effects shots and stuff like that. He didn't work directly on that production, but he was able to give us again some insight when we hear certain numbers tossed around and certain insights on things. So if you haven't listened to that episode, please by all means go to our back catalog and check that out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I really encourage you to do that. We appreciate all the fantastic reviews that we got there on iTunes, and follow their lead to go hit us up and help us out there. We'll be sending off the shirt to Kid at Heart 33 very soon, and so we're very excited to do that as well. They can be repping Aggressive Negotiations just like I am tonight. Yep. And John, I don't know what it is. You're on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast, but I'm feeling this vibe through the Force that there may be something that you want to ask me on the show tonight.
Yeah, well, I mean, where I am, it's actually the future right now.
That is true. You are in the future.
I am in the future.
The Force is actually time traveling at this point.
That's right. There's actually a whole thing that actually triggers in my brain of whether Obi-Wan felt like, given the speed of light being a constant, and the way the Force works, does it have to go at the speed of light? So Obi-Wan actually felt the Alderaanian explosion several hours afterward, because that's as fast as the Force could get to him.
Ooh, or is it just that...
That's a ridiculous Star Trek sort of thing, but, just a thought.
That's a whole other podcast, I think, John.
I think so. But you know what? I do actually... I have a series of questions for you, because, here we are. We have talked about Star Wars a lot on this show, on the 602 Club, other forums, and something that I think would be interesting would be to sort of peel back the layers, the onions, because we've
What about cake? Could it be cake? Everybody likes cake.
Everybody does like cake, but my goal with this is to make you cry eventually. So I prefer the onion analogy.
I see. Yeah. I see what you did there.
But yeah, we've never done like a real deep dive into what Star Wars means to you, to me, to us, from a very personal aspect. Like, every fan has a very personal connection to what they love. And I think it would be very interesting to go through and examine, what is it that makes Star Wars resonate? A lot of people have seen these films, but you, Matt Rushing, walked away with something more that tied it to you, that made it endemic to your very existence, to the level where you and I get together and chat about it once a week at a minimum. And so I guess to get the ball rolling, for anybody that is unfamiliar, like, what is it about that first viewing that you took with you? What was the afterglow effect? What was it that made Star Wars latch on and hang on to your heart so firmly?
That's a great question, because I think it's definitely changed throughout the years, the thing that kind of keeps you coming back. And, as a 8-year-old watching all of them on VHS for the first time, back to back to back for my birthday with my best friends. We're all sitting around the TV. We are that generation that's only seen Star Wars on the small screen.
Right.
That was us. And there was something about the story that captured my imagination, the spaceships flying through, even that first shot of the Death Star, like everything Star Wars is kind of built to capture my imagination. And part of that had to do with the fact that I wasn't a huge reader as a kid. But what really got me into reading was actually the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And that book opened up my eyes to what reading could be, the places that reading could take you. And, I grew up on a lot of old movies, a lot of Westerns, old classic films, with like, Cary Grant or Gregory Peck, Audrey Hepburn, all of these amazing people.
Yeah.
I kind of grew up in that world, so I almost feel like I was predisposed to understand what Lucas was doing because I'd seen all these old films, and kind of it just fell in place. With all those old adventure films that I used to watch too, like Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn and all that kind of stuff. And it also connected with this whole other side of the way Chronicles of Narnia opened up reading to me. Star Wars opened up film to me and fandom in a way that I had never had that opened up before. And so I think that's really what got me in at the beginning. That's the thing that, kept it going for a long time. And I think as the years have gone by, especially as the prequels have come out, that's changed. But that spark was enough to get me through a lot of years.
Sure. Okay, so that spark, it's lit, and it's enough to carry you through. Now, obviously, you weren't just watching the movies. Like you said, it got you into the fandom. Was it something where you came out and you wanted all of the comics, you wanted all of the toys, or was it something where you had to, you had your spark lit and then you went back and you watched it again and then you wanted everything? Like, was it something where you just came out of it on fire and you said, I just want to go get and I want to grab and possess everything Star Wars that I can?
No, I came out of it wanting everything. Unfortunately, then there weren't any toys by that point. All the toys were gone. And the only thing left was finding, novelizations in the library. I read the novelizations for Empire and Jedi and Star Wars. And, then luckily, not too far from that, Zahn's Thrawn novel came out. First one, Heir to the Empire. And that set off a whole other chain reaction of diving into this world that got opened up by publishing Bantam Books, and that really sparked the interest. And then, of course, through the 90s, you started to hear the rumblings that special editions were going to come out, and then the prequels, and then, honestly, it's just snowballed from there. And then, the moment the 90s hit, and they started to ramp up towards the special editions, toys started to come back. So, it's like,
Well, yeah.
it became this never-ending process of rejuvenation of my fandom.
Okay, so then there's two questions out of that. One, I think we because we talked about the Heir of the Empire series in the Journey to the Force Awakens over on 602 Club, and if I recall correctly, like for you, the Heir of the Empire books were as good as the sequel trilogy. That was
absolutely. That was my sequel trilogy.
Right,
yeah,
and because our age difference is a little bit different, so I think it impacted you. It hit you at a time, and in a way that was a little bit different. But along the way, because you mentioned the special editions, did you ride the Shadows of the Empire wave? Was that like a big thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, I read the book. I didn't get to play the game because I didn't have the game console.
Yeah, neither did I.
But I was able to read the book. I mean, that hit at a perfect time for me to be able to get into that whole idea. And I think I had some friends who had computers, and so I got to play like the original Rebel Assault game and things like that. And then I finally got into gaming because I finally got the opportunity to have a computer that could play like Dark Forces, and then Dark Forces 2, Jedi Knight, that came out. And of course, that was your first experience really being a Jedi, and you're just like, this is awesome, So, I think on the surface level of all of those things kind of perpetuating my fandom and keeping me engaged in it really happened. But, on a personal level, I honestly, and I'm going to call out a friend that I made, and I finally got to meet her at Star Wars Celebration, and she does a bunch of different podcasts. She does Star Wars Bookworms. She's on the other show, Fangirls Going Rogue, and a couple of others, actually. She does a ton of podcasts, and so... I'm sitting there at Celebration first morning talking with Teresa, and we start talking about kind of the thing that got her into Star Wars, and she started getting very personal about really what brought her in and going very deep with it. And it got me thinking about, okay, what is it that has really been connecting me to my fandom these days? And in a very deep and like soul-searching type way. And I've been thinking about it for a while now, and I was actually really surprised with what I came up with.
Okay.
That I relate to Anakin Skywalker from the prequels.
Sure.
And when I say that, I mean that Anakin, as you watch the prequels, he is somebody who does want to do the right thing, but he's also very impatient, and he will take any means to get what he wants, no matter really kind of what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized there's so much of that kind of Anakin in me, where I've wanted to be somebody who does the right thing, but that overriding factor became, but I really want to do what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that in Anakin. He has a desire to kind of want to do the right thing throughout the prequel series, especially 2 and 3. But that's also not going to stop him from breaking the rules if he has to get what he wants.
Right.
And that's absolutely who I've been through so much of my life. And it was actually it's kind of disheartening to realize that.
Why is that disheartening though? Because the thing is, I mean, that's what makes Anakin function as a successful character, is the fact that any successful character is going to have to be relatable on some level. Now, what I find interesting about it is your favorite character, as everybody who talks to you for 5 minutes or longer knows, is Obi-Wan Kenobi. So what is it that makes Obi-Wan Kenobi your favorite character, yet you feel that you relate to Anakin in this way?
Because Obi-Wan is the one that I want to be. Obi-Wan is the character that everybody should want to be, honestly, because he's the one who is willing to give up what he wants for the betterment of others and the galaxy. He's willing to do the right thing even if it costs.
Sure.
And that's his character, that the values and the internal character to which that person of Obi-Wan Kenobi has is what I would want to see more reflected in my life, instead of, looking in the mirror and feeling more like I see an Anakin Skywalker type. And, being somebody who feels like in a lot of ways you kind of burned down certain parts of the galaxy of my life in certain times and places, that's not the feeling I want to have. I definitely want to end up my life in a place where I can feel confident that I have done everything I could, in the same way that I feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi does when he gives up the ghost.
Well,
literally.
I find it interesting that you're contrasting with Obi-Wan, because up until, I guess Episode 7 came out, like Luke was really the counterpoint to Anakin, because he goes through the same thing and he does make the right choices. Why is it that you see Obi-Wan as more of the type of character to mimic as opposed to a Luke?
Well, I think obviously Luke is the kind of ultimate reflection, but I think for me, there was something about Obi-Wan Kenobi that just struck me, especially throughout the prequel series. And I think he was the first kind of mirror for, Obi-Wan Kenobi can be brash, and he can be a little bit arrogant sometimes, and he even says that to Yoda. I was impetuous too. I wasn't the person that you necessarily thought I should be when you trained me. And yet Obi-Wan is able to deny those parts of himself, to let go, to again do the right thing. And I think he's the like when you look at the prequel trilogy, he's the first mirror for Anakin. You get to the original trilogy, Luke becomes the ultimate mirror at this point for Anakin. But it's only by seeing, I think, the two trilogies together that all truly makes sense. And so,
well, I mean, I've I don't discount that. I find it interesting because I've always I've never considered Obi-Wan as much of a mirror foil as Luke, but that's definitely an interesting perspective, and it would make sense then why Obi-Wan would be your favorite character. I think that probably, when you talk to people about their favorite character, that's what it's going to be. Is that they're going to be a counter positive to some other character in the series that they view as like the flawed, the funhouse mirror of themselves versus the mirror of their true self, sort of thing. And that's probably true in any sort of franchise.
Oh yeah.
But what is it that makes these characters jump out at you? And I mean, I think a totally fair answer to this even is, oh, well, just the age I saw the movies or something. But like, what is it that makes these characters jump out at you head and shoulders above other characters in other movies that you saw?
Well, yeah, specifically for Anakin, Anakin has the veneer, at least, and this is the discussion that we've had before. Does he really love Padme? Is he doing it for love, or why is he doing it, and all those kind of things? We talked about that on Breaking Anakin Part 1 and 2, both of us. And so definitely go back and check those out if you haven't had a chance to. But there is that aspect where there was a girl involved, right? And for me, that's kind of been my kryptonite. I was always kind of doing it for that attention from the female persuasion. And so that's really, I think, where I put those pieces together for myself, of kind of seeing myself in the shoes of Anakin Skywalker, of doing whatever it took to get what I wanted, no matter who it hurt around me. And that's in the end, that's exactly what he becomes guilty of, is just being utterly selfish.
So that's what makes this series resonate more than, I mean, I would dare say even more than Harry Potter. Yeah. I mean, you're a huge Harry Potter fan.
Yeah.
So what puts this head and shoulders above, or even if it's just a hair, just a tiny part of the scalp,
right,
above Harry Potter? What is it that puts Star Wars Or is that an unfair question in some way?
No. I actually think you're absolutely onto something. I think that these connections for Star Wars and the deepening of the connection, as I was talking about, that there's been changes, and this has only been something I feel like I've been really thinking about for myself, even since Celebration. I mean, it's been very soon for this to kind of come to this realization of what Star Wars has really been kind of teaching me about myself, these character studies. And yeah, as much as I love Harry and I see pieces of myself in that series and I love that, Star Wars has just been with me longer. And the fact that it keeps allowing, it has the ability to continue to teach me about the human condition, which is what Star Trek was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. But I think Star Wars really touches on such a deeper, more fundamental, primal level because it's all about character arcs. It's all about character growth. It's all about why characters do what they do, why people do what they do. And George found a way to tap into the human condition in a way that not many people or storytellers really have. Not discounting any other storytellers. Obviously, I do a whole show about Harry Potter, and I love that. And I think Rowling does a great job of connecting in that too. But yeah, Star Wars has cemented itself in its place in my life, and as a tool that's been definitely good for me to teach because it's been there the longest for the most part.
That makes complete sense. I wonder now, just spurred from that, is that the reason why we see so much franchise thinking is possibly because Star Wars, I mean, for a while it was just the 3 movies and then it sort of like eked through the books and everything. Do you think that it's also the fact that Star Wars has been able to continue expanding its definition through your life?
Yeah, I think you're onto something. That Star Wars has continued to grow and it's continued to have other stories that deepen the mythology. It's created characters that continue to teach us and teach me about humanity and all of that. I mean, I think even the wonderful job of the characters in Rogue One and the conflict that they talk about, the rough life of somebody like Cassian Andor, who's like, not everybody had a choice. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. I've been fighting to do something about what I think is right in the galaxy for as long as I can remember, as long as I could pick up a blaster as a kid. The way that resonates for me for the world we live in, again, Star Wars is continuing to be a hallmark, a touch point for creating great characters and archetypes to which still speak to us and speak to me personally. Is that's what we're talking about, taking Star Wars personally.
Right. I mean, granted, like we've said, part of it is how long it's been and the redefining and everything. But I do want to focus on one other contrast here because you mentioned Star Trek. Is it a problem that Star Trek has had so many different hours and writers and so much different content of on-screen material, and Star Wars, therefore, do you think it's been more impactful to you because the actual on-screen stories are rarer, giving you more reason to focus on them with greater intensity? There's a shorter window of time to focus on it and then a longer period of time to wait between those periods. I mean, sure, you have the books and everything, but that never really quite reaches the same level as the on-screen entertainment. This is all a visual story, when it comes down to it.
Well, put it this way, the reason that Deep Space Nine speaks to me the most for Star Trek is because it has the most cohesive whole. There's a more cohesive storyline structure, thematic elements that run through that series that all kind of tie together. And I think that's the thing that's set Star Wars above a lot of things, is that whether it's the movies, the books, the comics, sometimes, the TV shows that they've done, for the most part, it has a thematic structure that you see it through, and it all kind of works together to create this kind of whole that really comes together as a nice puzzle.
Right.
And each part like you said, there isn't as much of it. There sometimes I just almost feel like there's more humanity to it, honestly. And part of that is because they're just as flawed and as weak of characters as we can be, but they can also be just as inspiring, as I was saying earlier, that Obi-Wan is for me.
Well, I mean, I would offer as well that with Star Trek, a lot of times, and I will exempt Deep Space Nine from this specific criticism as well, because I love the show so much, and I love it because of X, Y, and Z factors. But Star Trek as a whole, I think, just for sake of comparison, and again, this is speaking as a Star Trek fan, lifelong Star Trek fan. Star Trek has always felt very bottled, like it doesn't feel like when you get to a Star Wars property, especially the filmed property, you understand that this is personal stories within a structure that hasn't changed. A galaxy that is the same as it always was. Whereas with Star Trek, a lot of times it feels like they're wiping the slate clean and saying, oh no, this is a different version of society, and these are asking these questions in that context. Whereas I think that Star Wars can wind up being a little bit more durable, because you're not changing the condition of the universe or the world that you're encountering. You're saying that's all the same. So if I take these characters of this type and put them in that situation, what happens? And then I take characters of these type and I put it in that situation, what happens? Your baseline control for how their world works remains more constant. I think that probably helps it a bit too.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Do you think that the fact that Star Wars does resonate with you so personally, that the fact that it is so rooted and so much a part of you, do you think that that makes it a more challenging sort of thing to discuss critically, or to encounter harsh criticism? Because people have been pretty hard on the property through time. Do you think that that presents any sort of special challenge? And granted, you could take Star Wars out of it. In case somebody's, Harry Potter is their thing, or somebody else, Star Trek is their thing. Do you think that being as personally connected, as personally invested in the emotional pieces of Star Wars, do you think that makes those critical discussions more difficult?
I don't think so. And part of that is I think that, there are certain aspects of the prequel trilogy that I can honestly admit I don't think are perfect. Mm-hmm. And I can be critical of that. I can be critical of maybe some of the decisions for even the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. And I can definitely do that for the books or comics as well, and I can do that for the sequel trilogy, and I have for the sequel trilogy. And I've done it for all of them, honestly. You can take a listen to, I think we were talking about earlier, the 602 Club episodes, and there's going to I'm not just going to be a complete fanboy about something. It's just all awesome, but I think that personal, not just investment, but the way in which that it's helped me see different parts of my life reflected in characters, it does do something different than just like I love Doctor Who, but I don't necessarily see myself as the Doctor, that kind of thing. So yeah, it does make Star Wars special, but I don't think it makes it special in a way that keeps me from being able to also be somebody who loves film and loves, good stories. And, if it's not doing that well, I also want to be able to say, well, we can do this better.
Okay. Well, I think that's fair. And this has been pretty fascinating, pretty eye-opening. I know that everybody listening definitely appreciates you being as open and honest, about this as you have been. I know that what you've said is definitely going to be resonating with a lot of people. So, if you want to give some feedback to Matt, does his journey mirror yours? Do you see a bit of him and you, and you and him, and the way you relate to Star Wars? You can reach out to Aggressive Negotiations over on the nerdparty.com/contact. and you can drop us a note there. You can reach out to us on Twitter at The Jedi Masters is the show account, or you can go through at Join Nerd Party, which is the network account. And we always post the show on Facebook at facebook.com/The Nerd Party, and you can go ahead and respond to those posts or drop us a line over there. And so those are the official channels where they could reach out to you, Matt. If somebody wants to talk to you a little bit deeper about this discussion, where can they find you online?
Yeah, you could find me all over the place. I am on Twitter at MattRushing02. I am also on Instagram at MRushing. I'm here on the network talking about not just Star Wars, but Harry Potter with Drea Kaufman. We're going through each and every chapter of Harry Potter. We're actually finally in the second book now. I guess I'd say finally, but it's going so fast.
Yeah, it goes a lot faster than I thought it would, man. It really does.
It does. So check it out. I'll post. It's a great show. We have a blast, and I hope everybody will give it a listen. And I mean, it is a great show that if you've never really read Harry Potter, it's a great time to jump in. We've only done one book. It doesn't take that long to listen to those episodes and read with us. If you're somebody, though, that's read it a million times, well, so have Drea and I. And so we're kind of mixing all that together. And I think it's created a really fun reread project for us that everybody gets to chime in on. You can also find me on the Trek FM network. I actually do a show about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It's called The Orb. I do that with my friend Chris Jones, and we're back. The show is back. We just actually dropped our first episode in a really long time because of some medical issues for Chris, and we're back. So be sure to check it out. And if you've never checked it out, we've got a great catalog for you to check out, too.
That is true.
Yeah. Of course, we've talked about the 602 Club. You can find all of the episodes there on Apple Podcasts and, of course, all the shows there. Goodness, we talk about every fandom that we can, not just Star Wars, but Marvel, DC, Bond. I mean, we're trying to hit it all that we can. So make sure you check that out. It's a lot of fun. And we have Star Wars: The 602 Club collection. So if you just want to get Star Wars episodes, you can go to one place and download all of those episodes and listen to them at one time, or just while you're running or whatever. So, John, enough about me, because I know that, next week we're going to talk about your Star Wars story and what's personal for you. But if anybody wants to kind of nudge you on, the old social media or something, where can they find you?
Actually right here on the network, you can find me co-hosting Great Shot Kid with Mike Schindler, where we look at the work of Star Wars creators. And actually, we have a very special episode coming up in honor of the 40th anniversary of Star Wars. It's going to be a little bit trippy, a little bit fun. And you can also find me co-hosting with Mike Schindler over on the Trek FM network, Stage 9, where we look at Star Trek creators. So it's that's fun. If you're a Star Trek fan, it's really fun to look at the work of those creators outside of the franchise. And you can find me co-hosting Words with Nerds with my pal Craig, where we'll make anybody laugh. And if you're really good and you leave your tooth under your pillow, Kessel Junkie over on the internet might come by and take it from you. No teeth in your head. Just leave it under your pillow.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, there were problems at the beginning. I hadn't established enough ground rules. So, but with all of that being said, Matt, I think there's only one thing left to say. I think it's time to close negotiations.
John, negotiations are closed.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.